Okay guys, so we're going to practice factorising. It seems to be a key skill that too many of you keep losing marks on, and so we'll look at factorising from D grade, C grade perspective up to B grade. So those on the higher course obviously practice the B grade type questions, and those on the foundation course make sure you can do the D and C grade type questions. So what kind of things does factorising involve? Well, let's look at it from a fairly straightforward point of view. Then they could have given you a question that said factorize x squared plus 6x. Well, factorize starts with the word factor, so therefore we're looking for factors that go into things. Now, factors go into leaving a remainder. So x squared, well, x will go in there and leave x wholly, and x will go in here and leave 6. So the common factor is x. That goes outside the bracket. If I divide x squared by x, I'm left with x, and if I divide 6x by x, I'm left with 6, and there's a plus sign. So factorising that, you'd get this. This outside is called the highest common factor. This inside is what's left by dividing through those parts by the highest common factor. And we check, and it's really important you get into the habit of checking this works. So check is by expanding the bracket. So we've got x times x, which is x squared. And then we've got x times 6, which is 6x, and then the check works because we've got the two parts that were in the original expression. Another example, they could ask you to factorise 4y squared, take away 10y. If they ask you to do something like this, again, it's the same technique. You ask yourself, is there a common factor to all terms? Well, in these two terms, we can see that 4 and 10 both divide by 2, so they have a common factor of 2. And y squared and y both divide by y, so it has a common factor of y as well. So outside the bracket, because this will be a single bracket factorisation because both terms have common factor, so outside the bracket will be 2y. What do I multiply 2y to give me 4y squared? Well, it happens to be another 2y. And what do I multiply 2y by to give me 10y? Well, I need 5 of those, so 5 lots of that will give me 10y, but there's a negative, so it'll be a negative sign there. Again, the check, 2y times 2y, 2 times 2 is 4, y times y is y squared. 2y times negative 5, remember you should always put the negative in a bracket, so if you're using your calculator to check and things, then you get the calculator working properly. So 2y times negative 5 has got to be 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, and there's a y, so it's negative 10y. Those were the two parts of the expression. So notice all the time with this factorising that we're looking for the highest common factor that goes into all the terms, and once we've found it, we basically say to ourselves, what does that multiply by to give us each of the original terms? And that's what goes in the bracket. Another way of thinking about it is you can think of it as a division sum. Divide by the highest common factor. 4 divided by 2 leaves you with 2. Y squared divided by y leaves you with y. So that was why we got the 2y. 10y divided by 2y. Well, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Y divided by y is 1. 5 times 1 is 5, so that's why we're left with 5. And the negative, simply because we had the negative there. So that's factorising at C and D grade level. Stop the video and then you can listen to the next part when you're ready to do the double brackets. And this is only for higher tier students, the double brackets. Okay, so we're now going to factorise double brackets. So what that means is we might get expressions like this. So we're asked to factorise x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now, we know this is going to be a double bracket factorisation because there's no common factor to each of these. X goes into both of those, but there's no x there. Numbers, nothing apart from 1, and 1's an example you ignore as a common factor. It has to be different to 1 to be a common factor. So we know it's going to be a double bracket factorisation. And the way this works is we know that x has got to be at the beginning, x times x is x squared, and we know the two numbers at the end have to multiply to give me 6. So we ask ourselves what multiplies to give me 6, and then they have to add to give me 5. So they multiply to give 6, and they add to give 5. So the 5 is the number of x's in the middle, and the 6 was the constant at the end. So what multiplies to give me 6? 2 times 3, add them. Yep, they give me 5. So it's actually that one that's going to work, because 1 plus 6 would be 7, and that doesn't work. So basically we know then that we're going to put a 2 and a 3, all positive, so it's going to be plus and plus. To check that worked, there's lots of methods, but we should expand the brackets just like we did when we did the single bracket factorizations. We expand the bracket to check they work. So we're timesing. We have x plus 2 in one bracket, x plus 3 in the other bracket. So we've got x times x, x squared. We've got x times positive 2, which is positive 2x. We've got x times positive 3, which is positive 3x. And then we've got positive 3 times positive 2, which is positive 6. Like terms together, so we get x squared, 2x plus 3x is 5x, and the 6. So the check worked. One more example before you practice. Well, let's have a look if we've got some negatives involved. So what if we had something like x squared, take away 10, and plus 3x. And the question was factorize this. So we know it's going to be two brackets. It's a quadratic with no common factor to all terms. Nothing goes into 10, 3x and x squared wholly as a factor. So therefore it's going to be two brackets. We know at the front of the brackets it's got to be x and x. X times x is x squared. We know at the end of the brackets we've got to multiply to make negative 10. So we could have negative 10 times 1. We could have negative 5 times 2. We could have 2 times negative 5. We could have 10 times negative 1. That's the timesing bit. It's got to equal negative 10. And the adding bit has got to equal positive 3. So we times to make negative 10, and they've got to add to make negative 3. Well, negative 10 plus 1, no. Negative 5 plus 2, no. 2 plus negative 5, I'll put that the rest around, sorry. So that should be negative 2 times 5, because we've already done negative 5. So we've got negative 2 plus 5, yes. So that works. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So we know we're going to do negative 2 plus 5. We check x negative 2, x positive 5, timesing, x times x, x squared, x times positive 5, positive 5x, negative 2 times x, negative 2x, negative 2 times positive 5, negative 10. Bring your like terms together. So we've got an x squared, 5x's take away 2x's is left with positive 3x's and negative 10. So our checked work, we can be happy. Okay, so you've got a worksheet to work through, guys, and I would basically do all of them. Just keep yourself practicing to make sure you've got the key skills. They're popular questions, factorising on the higher paper. Foundation paper, not every year, but when it comes up, it's usually okay once you remember the techniques of a single bracket, find the highest common factor, divide into, and then work out what's missing. Okay, so practice the factorising, guys. There are some harder ones, some A-grade ones on the sheet with some answers. Obviously you can talk to each other how you might do those, and those involve 2x squared and things. But just remember, if you've got 2x squared, then the bracket should start with 2x and x. And then the same thing happens at the end there. The two numbers multiply to give you, whoops, if you've got 2x squared in the quadratic, it's going to be 2x and x at the front. The two numbers at the end there still multiply to give you the end. The only thing that's different about when you've got 2x squared or more is that the adding bit has to involve the number 2 as well. So in other words, you have to do 2 times one of these numbers plus the other one to give you the middle. Try them, see how far you can get.